Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone watching this video right now. May you bless them with peace, joy, and breakthroughs in their lives. Amen. Hello, my wonderful family. I am so glad and grateful to have you here with me today. Your support means the world, and I truly don't take it for granted. Before we dive into today's powerful story, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below to share your thoughts, and of course, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from this channel. Your foster mother has left you everything, Mr. Sullivan. The entire estate. $450 million. The lawyer's words hit Danny Sullivan like a freight train to the chest. He gripped the arms of the burgundy leather chair so hard his knuckles went white, staring at the man across the mahogany desk who had just turned his entire world upside down with a single sentence. That's impossible, Danny whispered, his voice barely audible in the sterile office that smelled of old books and expensive cologne. Eleanor never had that kind of money. We lived in a 2-bedroom house in Oakland. She worked double shifts at the hospital just to keep the lights on. The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, according to the nameplate, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and slid a thick folder across the desk. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood was quite deliberate about maintaining her modest lifestyle, shall we say. The inheritance includes multiple properties, investment portfolios, and a rather substantial trust fund that has been growing for decades. Danny's hands shook as he opened the folder. Numbers swam before his eyes, so many zeros he couldn't process them. Bank statements from institutions he'd never heard of. Property deeds for places he'd never been. Stock certificates that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. She wanted you to have this, Harrison continued, pulling out a sealed envelope with Danny's name written in Eleanor's familiar, careful handwriting, with explicit instructions that it only be given to you after her funeral arrangements were complete. 3 days. It had been 3 days since they'd lowered Eleanor's casket into the ground at Mountain View Cemetery. 3 days since Danny had stood there in his only suit, the one Eleanor had bought him for his high school graduation 5 years ago, watching the handful of mourners who'd come to say goodbye. His co-workers from the auto shop, Mrs. Chun from next door, his girlfriend Sarah, who'd held his hand while he cried for the woman who'd saved his life when he was 14. The woman who, apparently, had been sitting on nearly $500 million while they ate mac and cheese for dinner 4 nights a week. Danny tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. Eleanor's voice seemed to whisper from the pages. My dearest Danny, asterisk if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably feeling like your world has been turned upside down. I know this inheritance comes as a shock. I know you're wondering why I never told you, why we lived the way we did when I could have given you everything. Asterisk. Asterisk, the truth is, money changes people, sweetheart. I've seen it destroy families, corrupt souls, and turn love into greed. I wanted you to grow up knowing your own worth had nothing to do with a bank account. I wanted you to understand what real love looks like, not the kind that comes with $signs attached. Asterisk. Asterisk, but now you're a man, and these resources can do good in the right hands. Your hands. Because you, Danny Sullivan, are the kind of person who would share his last dollar with a stranger. You're the kind of man who stays up all night fixing Mrs. Chen's car for free because her grandson is visiting. You're the kind of person who brings me coffee in bed every Sunday morning just to see me smile. Asterisk. Asterisk, there's one more thing I need you to do for me. Don't tell anyone about this inheritance right away. Wait. Watch. See who stands by you not because of what you have, but because of who you are. The people who love you now when they think you're just Danny the mechanic who can barely make rent. Those are your real family. Guard them with your life. Asterisk. The others will reveal themselves soon enough. All my love, Mom. Danny's vision blurred as tears dripped onto the letter. Even from beyond the grave, Eleanor was still teaching him, still protecting him. Still being the mother he'd never thought he'd have when he'd aged out of his last foster home at 18, angry and alone. There's a provision, Harrison said gently, clearly recognizing the emotional weight of the moment. Mrs. Blackwood set up a modest monthly allowance to be deposited into your current account, enough to cover your expenses without raising suspicions. The rest remains in trust until you're ready to claim it. There's no timeline. You can access everything tomorrow if you choose, or you can wait years. It's entirely up to you. Danny wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and looked up at the lawyer. How long did you know her? 23 years. She was an extraordinary woman. Very clear about what she wanted. Very protective of the people she loved. Harrison's professional demeanor softened slightly. She talked about you constantly, you know. How proud she was. How you'd turned your life around. The weight of it all settled on Danny's shoulders like a lead blanket. $450 million. More money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. Money that could change everything. His life, his girlfriend's life, his friends' lives. Money that could also destroy everything he'd built with people who knew him as just Danny. The guy who could fix any engine and always had time to help a friend. Eleanor's words echoed in his mind. See who stands by you not because of what you have, but because of who you are. I need some time to think, Danny said, carefully placing the letter back in the envelope. Of course. Take all the time you need. My contact information is in the folder. When you're ready to move forward with anything at all, just call. Danny walked out of the law office in downtown San Francisco into the bright afternoon sun, his mind reeling. He'd taken the day off work for this meeting, expecting to maybe inherit Eleanor's car or some family photos. Instead, he was walking around with knowledge that could change everything. His phone buzzed. A text from his best friend Marcus. Asterisk, how'd the lawyer thing go? You inherit her secret stash of romance novels? Asterisk. Danny stared at the phone, his finger hovering over the keyboard. 3 words would change everything. 450 million. But Eleanor's letter burned in his jacket pocket, her final lesson waiting to unfold. Instead, he typed back. Asterisk, just some paperwork stuff. You around tonight? Could use a beer. Asterisk. Asterisk always, bro. Your place or mine? Asterisk. Asterisk mine. Sarah's making dinner. Asterisk. Danny pocketed his phone and started walking toward the BART station. For now, he was still just Danny Sullivan, mechanic. The man who split grocery bills with his girlfriend and borrowed $20 from friends when he came up short on rent. But as he descended into the subway tunnel, Eleanor's warning whispered in his ear. The others will reveal themselves soon enough. He had no idea how right she was about to be. Hey there, beautiful souls. I know that opening hit hard. Trust me, it's about to get even more intense. What you just witnessed is the moment everything changes for Danny, but here's the thing. He has no idea what's coming. The real story. It's just getting started, and the people he trusts most are about to show him sides of themselves he never knew existed. Stay with me, because what happens next will make you question everyone in your own life. The smell of garlic and oregano filled Danny's small apartment as Sarah stirred a pot of marinara sauce on the second-hand stove they'd bought together 6 months ago. She was humming softly, something she only did when she was truly content, and Danny felt that familiar warmth in his chest that told him he was home. How was the mysterious lawyer meeting? Sarah asked without turning around, her auburn hair catching the light from the overhead fixture they'd installed crooked, because neither of them was particularly handy. Please tell me Eleanor left you her secret cookie recipe. I've been trying to replicate those chocolate chip ones for months. Danny wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, breathing in the scent of her shampoo mixed with the cooking spices. Just some legal stuff. Nothing exciting. The lie tasted bitter on his tongue, but Eleanor's letter felt like a sacred trust he wasn't ready to break. Well, that's anticlimactic. Sarah leaned back against his chest. I was hoping for at least a mysterious family heirloom or a diary full of scandalous secrets. If only she knew. Marcus should be here any minute, Danny said, grateful for the change of subject. I think he's bringing that girl from his work. Jessica? Jennifer? Jade, Sarah corrected, finally turning in his arms. Her green eyes, the same color as Eleanor's he'd always thought, studied his face with the intensity that had first drawn him to her 3 years ago. You okay? You seem, I don't know, different. Danny's heart skipped. Sarah had always been able to read him like an open book. It was one of the things he loved most about her, and right now, one of the things that terrified him most. Just weird being in a lawyer's office, you know? Makes everything feel real. That she's really gone. Sarah's expression softened immediately, and she cupped his face in her hands. Oh, baby. I'm sorry. I know today was hard. Before Danny could respond, the apartment's flimsy door rattled under Marcus's signature knock. 3 short, 2 long, 1 short. Their secret code from when they were teenagers getting into trouble together. Food's ready, Sarah called out, already moving to set the table. Marcus burst through the door with his usual energy, a woman with striking black hair following behind him. Danny boy, how'd it go with the suit today? Jade, right? Danny extended his hand to Marcus's date, deflecting the question. I'm Danny. The famous Danny. Jade's smile was warm but calculating, her eyes quickly scanning the apartment's modest furnishings. Marcus talks about you constantly. Says you're like the brother he never had. More like the brother I never wanted, Marcus shot back with a grin, pulling Danny into a bear hug. But I'm stuck with him now. They'd met 7 years ago in a community college auto repair course. 2 kids from broken homes trying to build something better. Marcus had been the one to introduce Danny to Sarah at a party neither of them belonged at. He'd been the one to help Danny move Eleanor into her house when her arthritis got bad. He'd been the one to speak at Eleanor's funeral when Danny couldn't find the words. So what's the inheritance looking like? Marcus asked as they settled around the small dinner table. Please tell me she left you something good. You've been eating ramen for weeks. Danny felt Sarah's eyes on him. The inheritance papers were locked in his bedroom drawer, but the weight of them pressed against his consciousness like a physical thing. Just some personal stuff, Danny said carefully. A few thousand in savings. Nothing life-changing. It wasn't technically a lie. A few thousand was nothing compared to what Eleanor had actually left him. Still, every little bit helps, right? Jade chimed in, twirling pasta around her fork. With rent prices these days, even a few thousand could make a real difference. Jade works in real estate, Marcus explained. She's always thinking about money. Someone has to be practical, Jade laughed, but Danny caught something sharp in her tone. I see too many people struggling because they don't plan ahead. It's actually smart to be strategic about inheritance money. Invest it right, and even a small amount can grow into something substantial. Danny nodded noncommittally, but he was studying Jade's face. There was an intensity there when she talked about money that reminded him of something Eleanor had once said. Asterisk, watch people's eyes when they talk about wealth, Danny. You'll learn everything you need to know. Asterisk. What about you, Sarah? Jade turned her attention to Danny's girlfriend. Do you think people should be practical about money, or follow their dreams? Sarah laughed, reaching over to squeeze Danny's hand. I think if you have someone you love, you can make anything work. Danny and I have been together 3 years, and we've never had much money, but we're happy. That's worth more than any inheritance to me. The words should have made Danny feel warm, but something cold settled in his stomach instead. Because for the first time, he wondered, would Sarah still feel that way if she knew he was sitting on $500 million and choosing not to tell her? That's beautiful, Jade said, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But love doesn't pay rent, you know? I've seen too many couples break up over financial stress. We're doing fine, Danny said firmly. We make it work. Of course you do, Jade agreed quickly. I just meant, well, it must be nice knowing there's at least a little safety net now. Even if it's not much. There it was again. That probing quality, like she was fishing for information. Danny glanced at Marcus, who was completely oblivious, focused on his pasta and making jokes about Sarah's cooking. After dinner, as Sarah cleaned dishes and Marcus told increasingly embellished stories about their latest automotive disasters, Danny's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Excuse me, he said, stepping out onto the small balcony that overlooked the parking lot. Mr. Sullivan? This is Harrison from the law office. I hope I'm not calling too late. Is everything okay? Oh yes, nothing urgent. I just wanted to let you know that someone has been asking questions about Mrs. Blackwood's estate. A young woman named Jade Morrison. She called this afternoon claiming to be a family friend, wanting to know if there were any outstanding debts or properties that might be going on the market. Danny's blood turned to ice. Jade Morrison? You know her? Danny looked through the sliding glass door at Jade, who was now helping Sarah with dishes, her head tilted in that calculating way as she asked Sarah questions Danny couldn't hear. She's dating my best friend. Ah, well, I wanted you to know that I didn't provide any information, of course. Client confidentiality and all. But I thought you should be aware that people are asking questions. Thank you, Danny managed. I appreciate the call. He hung up and stood there on the balcony, Eleanor's warning echoing in his head. The others will reveal themselves soon enough. It had been less than 12 hours. When he came back inside, Jade was sitting next to Marcus on the couch, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Everything okay? Sarah asked, looking up from loading the dishwasher. Just work stuff. Another lie. They were coming easier now. Actually, Jade said, her voice carefully casual. I hope you don't mind me asking, but Marcus mentioned Eleanor raised you? That must have been really special. I bet she had some amazing stories about the neighborhood, property values over the years, that kind of thing. Danny sat down slowly, feeling like he was walking through a minefield. She mostly talked about her patients at the hospital. She was a nurse. For how long? 30 years. Wow. She must have been really good with money to save up enough for a house in Oakland on a nurse's salary. That's impressive financial planning. Sarah looked up from the kitchen, frowning slightly. Jade, that's kind of a personal question, don't you think? Oh, I'm sorry. Jade's cheeks flushed pink. I work in real estate, so I'm always curious about how people make homeownership work. I didn't mean to pry. But Danny saw the way her eyes lingered on him, waiting for his response. Saw the way she'd positioned herself to watch his reactions. This wasn't casual curiosity. This was an interrogation disguised as small talk. Marcus, oblivious as always, jumped in to fill the awkward silence. Eleanor was amazing. Remember when she fixed my car that one time, Danny? Just went out there with a wrench and YouTube and figured it out in 20 minutes. She was resourceful, Danny agreed, but his mind was racing. How much did Jade know? How much had she guessed? The evening continued with surface-level conversation, but Danny felt like he was watching everything through glass. When Jade complimented their apartment, was she being polite or assessing? When she asked about their jobs, their plans, their dreams, was she making conversation or gathering intelligence? By the time Marcus and Jade left, Danny's nerves were frayed. Okay, what's going on? Sarah asked the moment the door closed behind them. You've been weird all evening. Danny looked at his girlfriend, really looked at her. Sarah Williams, who worked 2 jobs to put herself through nursing school, who brought him coffee every morning before her early shift, who had sat by Eleanor's bedside during those final weeks, reading to her when Danny couldn't find the strength, who had no idea that the man she loved could solve every financial problem in her life with a single phone call. I'm just tired, he said. It's been a long day. Sarah studied his face for a moment, then nodded. Grief is exhausting. Come on, let's go to bed. As they got ready for sleep, Danny's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. *, Jade really likes you guys. She said you seem like you're hiding something interesting though. What do you think she meant? *. Danny stared at the message for a long time before responding. No idea. But lying there in the dark next to Sarah, listening to her breathe, Danny finally understood what Eleanor had been trying to teach him. It wasn't just about money. It was about power. And the moment people suspected you had it, everything changed. Jade had smelled money on him somehow, and she was already circling. The question was, how many others would follow? And more terrifyingly, when the truth came out, which side of the line would the people he loved fall on? Danny closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, he was starting to realize that Eleanor's test wasn't just about discovering who his real friends were. It was about discovering whether he was strong enough to handle the answer. 2 weeks passed in a strange kind of limbo. Danny went to work every day at Rodriguez Auto Repair, his hands black with grease, his paycheck barely covering rent and groceries, while nearly $500 million sat untouched in accounts he'd never even seen. The monthly allowance Harrison had mentioned, $5,000, had appeared in his checking account like magic, but Danny had been too paralyzed to spend any of it. Eleanor's test consumed his thoughts. He found himself analyzing every interaction, every conversation, looking for signs of who could be trusted. Marcus remained his usual loyal self, but Jade had become a fixture in their group, and her questions never stopped. Where did Danny grow up? What had Eleanor's house been like? Had she ever mentioned other family members? Sarah, meanwhile, had been pulling double shifts at both her jobs, the coffee shop in the morning, the medical office in the afternoon, trying to save money for her final year of nursing school. Danny watched her exhaustion deepen each day, knowing he could solve all her problems with a single wire transfer. The irony was killing him. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Danny was under the hood of a 2015 Honda when his phone rang. Sarah's ringtone, their song, the one that had been playing when they first kissed. Hey, beautiful. What's... Danny? Sarah's voice was wrong, tight with pain and fear. I'm at the hospital. Something's wrong. The wrench slipped from Danny's hand, clanging against the concrete floor. What? What hospital? What happened? UCSF emergency. I was at work and I started having chest pains, trouble breathing. They're running tests, but... Her voice broke. Danny, I'm scared. I'm coming. Don't move, don't do anything. I'm coming right now. Danny was already running toward his beat-up Toyota, shouting to Rodriguez that he had an emergency. The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and horn honks and prayers to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. He found Sarah in the emergency department, looking small and pale in a hospital gown, connected to monitors that beeped with mechanical anxiety. The sight of her like that, vulnerable and frightened, made his chest physically ache. "Hey," he said softly, taking her hand. "I'm here." "The doctor wants to talk to us," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Martinez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a serious expression that made Danny's stomach drop. She led them to a small consultation room that smelled like disinfectant and bad coffee. "Ms. Williams, we've found some concerning irregularities in your heart rhythm," she began. "Combined with your symptoms and family history, we believe you're experiencing early-stage cardiomyopathy." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. "What does that mean?" Danny asked when Sarah seemed too stunned to speak. "It's a condition where the heart muscle becomes enlarged and weakened. The good news is we've caught it early. With proper treatment, people with cardiomyopathy can live normal, full lives." "Treatment," Sarah repeated numbly. "What kind of treatment?" Dr. Martinez pulled out a folder. "You'll need to see a cardiologist immediately for more detailed testing. Then likely medication, possibly a procedure to regulate your heart rhythm. We're looking at ongoing monitoring, lifestyle changes, and potentially more intensive interventions down the line." "How much?" Danny asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The initial consultation with cardiology is around $3,000. The tests they'll want to run could be another $8,000 to $10,000. If you need the procedure." Dr. Martinez looked uncomfortable. "We're talking about $40,000 to $60,000. The number hit Danny like a physical blow. Sarah's insurance from her part-time medical office job was basic at best. They'd be looking at crushing debt, medical bankruptcy, or Danny could solve this entire problem without even denting his inheritance. "We'll figure it out," Danny heard himself say. "Whatever she needs." Sarah squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. "Danny, we can't afford." "We'll figure it out," he repeated firmly. But as they sat there in that sterile room, Danny felt the walls of his carefully constructed normal life crumbling around him. Eleanor's test had just become a matter of life and death. 3 hours later, they were back in Danny's apartment. Sarah was resting on the couch with strict instructions to avoid stress and physical exertion. Danny was in the kitchen, staring at his phone, when Marcus arrived with Jade. "Jesus, man, how is she?" Marcus asked, immediately going to Sarah. "Scared," Sarah admitted. "The treatment is going to be expensive." "How expensive?" Jade asked, settling into the chair across from Sarah with that familiar calculating look. "More than we have," Danny said tightly. "There are payment plans," Jade said helpfully. "Medical financing. I know some people who work in healthcare finance." "At predatory interest rates," Sarah interrupted with uncharacteristic sharpness. "I know how this works. I've seen patients destroy their lives trying to pay medical bills." Marcus was pacing now, his usual energy transformed into anxiety. "There's got to be something we can do. A fundraiser, maybe? Social media campaign." Danny watched his best friend stress about money that Danny could provide instantly, easily, without any impact on his life whatsoever. The weight of the secret felt like it was crushing his lungs. "Actually," Jade said slowly, "Sarah, didn't you mention that Danny just inherited some money from his foster mom? Maybe not enough for everything, but enough to get started." The room went silent. Danny felt every eye turn to him. "It's not that much," Danny said carefully. "But it's something, right?" Jade pressed. "Every little bit helps in a medical emergency." Sarah looked at Danny with confusion. "You said it was just a few thousand. That barely covers the consultation." "It is just a few thousand," Danny lied, the words like ash in his mouth. But Jade wasn't letting it go. "I've been doing some research into Oakland property values, and Eleanor's house was in a really good neighborhood. Even if she just owned it outright, that's easily $200,000 in equity. Plus if she was as careful with money as you said." "Jade." Marcus's voice carried a warning. "Back off. I'm just trying to help," Jade said innocently. "If there's more money available than Danny's letting on, Sarah's health is more important than whatever reason he has for hiding it." The words hit the room like a grenade. Sarah sat up straighter, her eyes locked on Danny's face. "Hiding what?" "Nothing," Danny said quickly. "There's nothing to hide." "Then why," Jade said softly, "did you visit Harrison, Mills and Associates downtown? That's not exactly a neighborhood legal clinic. They handle high net worth estates." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Danny felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. How do you know that? Marcus asked, confusion clear in his voice. Jade's mask finally slipped, revealing something hard and predatory underneath. Because I called them. Because something didn't add up about Eleanor living like she was poor while owning property in one of Oakland's most expensive neighborhoods. Because I've seen enough inheritance cases to know when someone's hiding assets. You did what? Marcus stared at his girlfriend like he'd never seen her before. I was trying to help, Jade said, but her voice was defiant now. If Danny's sitting on money while Sarah faces medical bankruptcy, that's not noble. It's selfish. Sarah was looking back and forth between them, her face pale. Danny, what is she talking about? Danny felt the moment crystallize around him. This was it. The point of no return. Eleanor's test was over, whether he wanted it to be or not. He could keep lying, could deny everything and kick Jade out and hope Sarah believed him over a woman she barely knew. Or he could tell the truth and watch everything change forever. Sarah, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. The look on her face, hope and fear and confusion all tangled together, nearly broke his heart. The inheritance. Danny took a shaky breath. It's not a few $1,000s. How much? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Danny closed his eyes. $450 million. The silence that followed was deafening. When Danny opened his eyes, Sarah was staring at him like he was a stranger. Marcus's mouth was hanging open. And Jade? Jade was smiling. $450 million, Sarah repeated slowly, like she was testing the words. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to. We've been together 3 years. Sarah's voice was getting stronger, angrier. 3 years, Danny. I've watched you stress about rent. I've split grocery bills with you down to the penny. I've lent you money when you came up short. Sarah, please. I have a heart condition that could kill me, and you're sitting on nearly $500 million, and you didn't tell me. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice was steady. How long have you known? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. 2 weeks you've watched me panic about how we're going to pay for treatment. 2 weeks you've let me work myself to exhaustion trying to save money for school. I was protecting us, Danny said desperately. Eleanor left me a letter. She said to wait, to see who would stay real. So this was a test? Sarah's voice was ice. My heart condition was a convenient way to test my loyalty? No, that's not. Get out. The words hit Danny like a slap. Sarah, get out of my sight. Sarah was shaking now, whether from anger or her medical condition, Danny couldn't tell. I can't look at you right now. Marcus stepped forward, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. Dude, what the hell? $450 million. Marcus, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to us for 2 weeks? That you've been watching Sarah kill herself working while you could have solved all her problems? I was trying to protect. Protect what? Marcus's voice was rising. Your money? Because that's what this sounds like. Rich guy afraid his girlfriend loves him for his cash. Jade stood up, her expression triumphant. I think you all need some time to process this. Danny, whenever you're ready to discuss how to handle this situation properly, you have my number. She walked out, leaving carnage in her wake. Danny looked at the 2 people he loved most in the world, and saw only strangers staring back at him. I never wanted this, he said quietly. But you have it, Sarah said. And you chose to keep it from the people who love you. So what does that make you? Danny didn't have an answer. As he walked toward the door, Sarah called after him. Eleanor was wrong, you know. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. And it just revealed that the man I thought I loved doesn't exist. The door slammed behind Danny with a finality that echoed in his bones. Standing in the hallway of his apartment building, Danny pulled out his phone and dialed Harrison's number. Mr. Sullivan? Is everything all right? I need to access the inheritance, Danny said, his voice hollow. All of it. Tonight. Of course. Are you sure you're ready for? I'm ready, Danny interrupted. Eleanor's test is over. And I think I failed. Danny's new reality hit him like a tsunami at 7 a.m. the next morning. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk saw the news about your inheritance. We should talk. Trevor Walsh, financial advisor asterisk. News? What news? He grabbed his laptop and searched his name. The third result made his blood freeze. Local mechanic inherits $450 million fortune. The shocking Eleanor Blackwood estate revelation. The article was on a San Francisco financial blog, complete with photos of Eleanor's house, the law office, and somehow, a picture of Danny walking out of Harrison's building 2 weeks ago. The piece was thorough, detailed, and devastating. It mentioned his job at Rodriguez Auto Repair, his relationship with Sarah, even quotes from sources close to the family about his humble lifestyle. Danny's phone rang. Harrison. Mr. Sullivan, I'm calling to let you know there may have been a breach of confidentiality somewhere in the chain. I want to assure you it wasn't from our office. Too late, Danny said, scrolling through 3 more articles that had appeared overnight. It's everywhere. I'm very sorry. In cases like this, information has a way of surfacing through property records, financial institutions, court filings. Sometimes people talk. People like Jade, Danny thought grimly. His phone buzzed with another call. Marcus. Danny, man, I'm getting calls from reporters. They're asking about you, about Eleanor, about whether I knew. What the hell is going on? The story leaked somehow. Leaked? Dude, it's not just leaked. It's viral. #MechanicMillionaire is trending on Twitter. Danny felt sick. This was exactly what Eleanor had been trying to protect him from. The circus. The attention. The complete destruction of his normal life. I'm coming over, Marcus said. We need to talk. Marcus, I'm still pissed at you, but you're my brother. And brothers don't abandon each other when the world goes crazy. 30 minutes later, Danny opened his door to find Marcus standing next to a man in an expensive suit who definitely wasn't supposed to be there. Mr. Sullivan? Trevor Walsh, Walsh Financial Management. The man extended a manicured hand. I represent several high-net-worth individuals in situations similar to yours. I didn't ask for. Your friend Marcus here was kind enough to let me walk up with him. I understand you're dealing with some relationship challenges related to your recent revelation. Danny shot Marcus a look that could have melted steel. Hear him out, Marcus said, but he looked uncomfortable. This guy says he can help with Sarah's medical bills. And maybe there's a way to fix this. Trevor Walsh's smile was predatory. Mr. Sullivan, you're about to discover that extreme wealth comes with extreme problems. People will come out of nowhere claiming connections to Eleanor, to you, to your family. Lawsuits will materialize. The IRS will scrutinize every penny. You need professional management. I have a lawyer. Estate lawyers handle paperwork. I handle lives. For instance, I understand your girlfriend has a serious medical condition. Our firm has relationships with the finest cardiac specialists in the country. We could have her in front of a world-class cardiologist by this afternoon. Despite everything, Danny felt a spark of hope. Really? Absolutely. Consider it a demonstration of what proper wealth management can accomplish. Danny looked at Marcus, who shrugged. It couldn't hurt to listen, right? 2 hours later, they were sitting in the waiting room of the most exclusive cardiac practice in San Francisco. Danny had made 3 phone calls and transferred $50,000, and suddenly Sarah had an appointment with Dr. Elizabeth Chun, one of the top cardiologists on the West Coast. The irony of the name, Chun, like their elderly neighbor, wasn't lost on him. Sarah arrived looking tired and wary, her sister Monica as backup. Danny hadn't seen Monica in months, but now she was suddenly very interested in being supportive. Danny, Sarah said quietly when she saw him. What are you doing here? Making sure you get the best care possible. I can't afford. It's handled. Sarah's eyes flashed. I don't want your money. This isn't about wanting. This is about your life. Dr. Chen appeared before Sarah could respond, all calm professionalism and reassuring competence. Ms. Williams? I'm Dr. Chen. I understand we have some cardiac concerns to investigate. The next 3 hours were a blur of tests, consultations, and medical terminology that Danny tried desperately to understand. When it was over, Dr. Chen's news was both better and worse than they'd feared. The good news is that your condition is indeed treatable, she told Sarah in her office. The concerning news is that you need treatment immediately. I'm recommending a procedure called cardiac ablation within the next 2 weeks, followed by a medication regimen and lifestyle modifications. How much? Sarah asked. The procedure is $65,000. The follow-up care and medications will run about $1,500 a month indefinitely. Sarah went pale. I see. However, Dr. Chen continued, I understand your friend has arranged for all costs to be covered. Sarah turned to stare at Danny. You can't just. I can, Danny said quietly. And I am. We need to discuss this privately, Sarah said to Dr. Chen. Can you give us a moment? When they were alone, Sarah exploded. You can't buy your way back into my life, Danny. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to save your life. By throwing money at a problem you helped create. I helped create your heart condition. You helped create the stress that triggered it. Do you think it's a coincidence that this happened right after I found out my boyfriend has been lying to me for 2 weeks? The words hit Danny like a physical blow. Because she might be right. Sarah, please. Let me help you. After that, we can figure out everything else. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Fine. But this doesn't fix us. This doesn't change what you did. I know. As they left the medical office, Danny felt like he'd won a battle, but was losing the war. Sarah was getting treatment, but she wouldn't even walk next to him. Monica, however, had become very friendly. Danny, I have to say, this is really generous of you, she said as they waited for the valet. Sarah's lucky to have someone who cares this much. Of course. I was actually wondering. Monica's voice took on that same calculating tone he'd heard from Jade. I work in event planning, and I've been trying to get my business off the ground. If you ever need help with wealthy people stuff, galas, charity events, that kind of thing. Monica, Sarah warned. What? I'm just saying, he's going to need people he can trust. People who knew him before all this money stuff. Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. Even Sarah's sister was already angling for position. His phone buzzed with a text. Asterisk Danny. Saw the news. So proud of you, man. We should celebrate. Jake asterisk. Jake, who hadn't spoken to him in 6 months. Then another. Asterisk hey stranger. Crazy news about Eleanor. Would love to catch up soon. Amy asterisk. Amy, his ex from 2 years ago. Then, asterisk heard about your good fortune. If you need any financial advice, I'm here for you. Uncle Pete asterisk. Uncle Pete, who wasn't actually his uncle and had made it clear Danny wasn't welcome at family gatherings after he'd started dating Sarah. By the time Danny got home, he had 37 missed calls, 62 text messages, and 49 friend requests on social media from people he either barely knew or hadn't heard from in years. Trevor Walsh was waiting in the lobby of his apartment building. Mr. Sullivan. Perfect timing. How did the medical consultation go? Fine. How did you know I was? Part of the service. I've taken the liberty of drafting some initial security protocols. You're going to need them. Security protocols? Trevor gestured toward the street, where Danny now noticed a small crowd of people with cameras. Reporters mostly, but also people hoping to get close to you. Wealth attracts attention, and attention attracts all kinds. As if to prove his point, a woman pushed through the crowd toward them. Danny Sullivan. It was Mrs. Patterson, Eleanor's next-door neighbor. A woman who had barely acknowledged Danny's existence in the 5 years he'd been visiting Eleanor. Mrs. Patterson? Oh, Danny, I'm so glad I found you. I wanted to talk to you about Eleanor. She and I were much closer than people knew. She used to tell me all her secrets. Danny felt Trevor's hand on his arm, guiding him toward the building entrance. She left something for you, Mrs. Patterson called after them. Something important. Something about the money. The elevator doors closed on her desperate face. And so it begins, Trevor said calmly. Everyone who ever knew Eleanor, ever met you, ever heard your name will suddenly remember crucial conversations, important promises, secret agreements. The will is going to be challenged, mark my words. By who? Anyone who thinks they can make a case. Distant relatives, former friends, people who claim Eleanor promised them something. Your inheritance is legally solid, but that won't stop people from trying. Danny's phone rang. Harrison. Mr. Sullivan, I'm afraid I have some concerning news. We've received notice of a potential challenge to Eleanor's will. From who? A man named David Blackwood. He claims to be Eleanor's nephew. Danny felt the world tilt. Eleanor didn't have any family. She told me she was alone. According to his attorney, Eleanor's brother had a son who's been living overseas. He's claiming that Eleanor was not of sound mind when she made the will, that her attachment to you was the result of manipulation. That's insane. Perhaps. But he's requesting a full psychiatric evaluation of Eleanor's mental state in her final years, plus an investigation into your relationship with her. If he can prove undue influence. Danny sank onto his couch. He could take everything. It's a long shot, Harrison said quickly. But these cases can drag on for years. And in the meantime, everyone thinks I'm rich, but I might not be. Exactly. Danny hung up and looked at Trevor, who was making notes on an expensive tablet. How much do you charge? Danny asked. Our basic wealth management package is 2% of assets annually. For your situation, given the complexity, I'd recommend our comprehensive protection service. 5%, but it includes legal defense, security coordination, reputation management, and complete financial restructuring. Danny did the math. 5% of $450 million was $22.5 million a year. That seems like a lot. Trevor's smile was sympathetic but firm. Mr. Sullivan, 2 weeks ago you were worried about making rent. Today you're facing a potential inheritance challenge, media scrutiny, security concerns, tax implications, and relationship issues that all stem from extreme wealth. You need help. The question is whether you want professional help or if you'd prefer to navigate this alone. Danny looked out his window at the crowd of reporters and opportunists still gathering on the street. His phone was buzzing constantly with calls from numbers he didn't recognize. Sarah wouldn't speak to him. Marcus was acting weird. And somewhere out there, a supposed nephew was trying to prove that Eleanor was crazy and Danny was a con artist. 2 weeks ago, his biggest problem had been deciding whether to splurge on name-brand pasta sauce. What exactly would you do for me? Danny asked. Trevor opened his tablet. First, we set up a trust structure to protect your assets from litigation. Then we establish security protocols, personal protection, secure transportation, background checks on anyone in your inner circle. We also begin reputation management to control the narrative around your inheritance. Background checks on my friends? Mr. Sullivan, do you know who Jade Morrison really is? Danny's blood chilled. What do you mean? She's not a real estate agent. She's a freelance investigator who specializes in inheritance fraud. Someone hired her to get close to your friend Marcus and investigate Eleanor's estate. The room seemed to spin. Someone hired her? We're still determining who. But Mr. Sullivan, this was planned. Someone knew about your inheritance before you did, and they've been positioning pieces on the board for weeks. Danny felt like he was drowning. How is that possible? Eleanor's will was filed with the court when she died. It's public record, technically, though it takes some digging to find the details. Someone with the right connections, the right motivation, could find out everything and begin planning accordingly. The article that broke your story? It didn't just happen. This was a coordinated exposure designed to flush you out, force you to claim the inheritance, and create enough chaos to make you vulnerable. Danny's phone buzzed with another call. Sarah, I have to take this, he told Trevor. Danny. Sarah's voice was shaky. Someone's at my apartment. Reporters, I think. They're asking questions about Eleanor, about us, about whether I'm going to marry you for your money now. Get out of there. Go to your sister's. Monica's not answering her phone. Danny, I'm scared. For the first time since this nightmare began, Danny heard fear in Sarah's voice instead of anger. And suddenly, the money didn't matter. The inheritance didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting to Sarah. Stay inside. Lock the door. I'm coming. Don't, Sarah said quickly. If you show up, it'll just make it worse. Then what do I do? I don't know, Sarah whispered. I don't know anything anymore. After she hung up, Danny stared at his phone, feeling more helpless than he had when he was 14 and living on the streets. Trevor cleared his throat. Mr. Sullivan, this is exactly why you need professional management. Your girlfriend is being harassed because you don't have proper security protocols in place. Your best friend is compromised because you haven't run background checks. Your inheritance is being challenged because you haven't established legal protections. And you can fix all of this? I can give you the tools to fix it yourself. But it requires trusting the process. And it requires accepting that your old life is over. Danny looked around his small apartment. The crooked light fixture, the second-hand furniture, the pictures of him and Sarah and Marcus laughing together in simpler times. What if I don't want my old life to be over? Trevor's expression was almost pitying. Mr. Sullivan, your old life ended the moment Eleanor's will was read. Everything since then has just been you refusing to accept reality. Outside, car horns honked as more news vans arrived. Danny's phone rang again, another unknown number. Then another. And another. Okay, Danny said quietly. What do I need to do? Trevor's smile was pure satisfaction. Leave that to me. But as Trevor made calls and arranged meetings and began the process of transforming Danny's life into something unrecognizable, Danny couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a deal with the devil himself. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Eleanor's voice whispered a warning. Asterisk the people who love you now, when they think you're just Danny the mechanic. Those are your real family. Guard them with your life. Asterisk. The problem was, Danny was starting to realize he might have already lost them. 3 days into his new life under Trevor Walsh's management, Danny felt like he was living in someone else's skin. He'd been moved to a secure penthouse apartment in downtown San Francisco, complete with bulletproof windows and a security team that followed him everywhere. His bank accounts had been restructured into an incomprehensible web of trusts and offshore holdings. His phone number had been changed twice, and he hadn't spoken to Sarah in 72 hours. The cardiac ablation procedure is scheduled for tomorrow morning, Trevor reported, reviewing his tablet over breakfast in the penthouse's sterile kitchen. Dr. Chen's team is standing by. All costs covered, naturally. Danny pushed eggs around his plate, his appetite gone. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, San Francisco spread out below him like a toy city. He felt completely disconnected from it all. Any word on the inheritance challenge? David Blackwood's legal team is being persistent. They're requesting depositions from anyone who knew Eleanor in her final years, including your girlfriend. Danny's head snapped up. They can't drag Sarah into this. I'm afraid they can. And will. Harrison thinks it's a fishing expedition. They're hoping to find something that suggests undue influence on your part. There was no undue influence. Eleanor chose to leave me the money. Trevor's expression was carefully neutral. Of course, but perception matters in these cases. Danny's secure phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Asterisk, can you come to the hospital? I need to talk to you before the procedure. Asterisk. I need to go, Danny said, standing. Mr. Sullivan, I'd advise against public appearances right now. The media attention. I don't care about media attention. Sarah needs me. Trevor sighed. At least take the security detail. An hour later, Danny sat in Sarah's pre-op room, feeling like they were separated by an ocean despite being 2 feet apart. She looked small in the hospital gown, for lines snaking from her arms. How are you holding up? He asked. Terrified, Sarah admitted. Not of the procedure. Of everything else. Sarah, I know I screwed up. Stop. She held up her hand. I didn't ask you here to fight. I asked you here because... She took a shaky breath. Because I might not wake up from this procedure, and I can't go into surgery angry at you. Danny felt like his chest was caving in. Don't say that. Dr. Chen said the risks are minimal. Minimal isn't zero. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. And if something happens to me, I need you to know that I understand why you didn't tell me about the money. I might not agree with it, but I understand it. Sarah, I've been thinking about what it must have been like for you. Getting that news, reading Eleanor's letter, feeling like you had to choose between protecting us and being honest with us. She wiped her eyes. Maybe there wasn't a right choice. Danny reached for her hand, and for the first time in days, she didn't pull away. I love you, he said quietly. Money or no money, inheritance or no inheritance. I love you. I love you too, Sarah whispered. And that's what makes this so hard. What do you mean? Before Sarah could answer, the door opened. Dr. Chen entered with a man Danny didn't recognize. Tall, expensive suit, predatory smile that Danny was starting to recognize as a type. Ms. Williams, Mr. Sullivan, Dr. Chen said. This is David Blackwood. He asked to speak with you before the procedure. Danny's blood turned to ice. You're David Blackwood? Eleanor's nephew, yes. David's voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent Danny couldn't place. Though I suppose that makes us family of a sort, doesn't it? What are you doing here? Danny stood, positioning himself between David and Sarah. I wanted to meet the young man who's managed to convince everyone that my aunt was of sound mind when she left her fortune to a complete stranger. Danny's not a stranger, Sarah said weakly from the bed. Eleanor loved him. David's smile was cold. Did she? Or was she a lonely, aging woman with dementia who was manipulated by a charming young man who reminded her of the son she gave away? The words hit the room like a bomb. What son? Danny asked. Oh, she never told you? David's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. Eleanor had a child when she was 19. A son she gave up for adoption because she couldn't afford to raise him alone. That child grew up to be quite successful, actually. Made his own fortune in international finance. Danny felt the world tilting. You're lying. Am I? Tell me, Mr. Sullivan, did Eleanor ever mention why she became a foster parent so late in life? Why she specifically requested teenage boys who'd aged out of the system? Danny's mouth went dry. Because Eleanor had told him, during one of their late-night conversations when she couldn't sleep. She'd said she'd always regretted not being able to help a child who'd needed her when she was younger. She'd said she wanted to make up for a mistake she'd made. She was looking for her son, David continued. Every boy she fostered, she hoped might be him. But it never was. And then she got too old, too sick, and you came along, charming, grateful, exactly the right age to be the son she'd lost. That's not. Danny started, but his voice failed him. The beautiful part, David said, is that it was never even about you specifically. You were just a placeholder, a surrogate for the child she'd abandoned. And when she started showing signs of dementia in her final months. Eleanor didn't have dementia, Danny said firmly. Didn't she? David pulled out a manila folder. Medical records from her final 6 months. Multiple doctor visits for memory issues, confusion, episodes of not recognizing longtime friends and colleagues. Her physician recommended cognitive testing, but she refused. Danny stared at the papers, the words blurring together. This doesn't prove anything. It proves that Eleanor Blackwood was not of sound mind when she made that will. It proves that a confused, grieving woman was manipulated into leaving her fortune to someone who reminded her of the son she'd never stopped missing. Sarah was staring at Danny, her face pale. Danny, is this true? I don't know, Danny whispered. I don't know anything anymore. David's expression softened into something that might have been sympathy. Mr. Sullivan, I don't blame you for caring about Eleanor. But surely you can see that this inheritance was meant for her actual family, not a substitute. You said you were her nephew, Danny said weakly. I lied. I'm her son. The son she gave away 51 years ago. The son she spent her entire life looking for. David's voice carried real pain now. I found her 2 years ago, but she was already too far gone. She didn't remember me. Didn't remember giving birth to me. All she could talk about was her foster son Danny, how proud she was, how much she loved him. The folder slipped from Danny's hands, papers scattering across the hospital floor. I'm not trying to be cruel, David continued. But that money, it was supposed to help her find me. She'd been paying private investigators for decades. When that failed, she started fostering children, hoping one of them might be me. The inheritance should have come to me when she died, but instead it went to her latest foster child, Danny finished numbly. A foster child she mistook for her biological son, due to advancing dementia. Sarah was crying now, whether from the emotional revelation or pre-surgery stress. Danny couldn't tell. Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. There's more, David said gently. Trevor Walsh? He works for me. Has for 3 years. I hired him to monitor Eleanor's finances, to make sure she wasn't being taken advantage of in her final years. Danny felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Trevor works for you? I tried to protect her from fortune hunters, but I was too late. By the time we realized what was happening, the will had already been changed. I never asked her for anything, Danny said desperately. Of course you didn't. You didn't have to. A confused woman saw her lost son in you and acted accordingly. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Asterisk emergency meeting in 1 hour. New developments in the case. Asterisk. Danny stared at the message, understanding flooding through him like ice water. Trevor wasn't protecting him. Trevor was documenting everything, gathering evidence to support David's claim that Eleanor had been manipulated. How long? Danny asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been planning this? The investigation into Eleanor's finances, hiring Jade to get close to Marcus, leaking my story to the media. David's mask slipped slightly. Mr. Sullivan, you orchestrated all of this. You wanted me to claim the inheritance publicly, so you could challenge it. You wanted me to look like I was hiding money, spending lavishly, taking advantage of a sick woman. I wanted justice for my mother. Your mother died not knowing who you were, and instead of honoring her wishes, you're trying to destroy the life of someone she loved. David's expression hardened. She loved an illusion. She thought you were me. Maybe she did, Danny said, standing. But she still chose to love me. And I loved her back. Real love, not the kind that comes with a financial motive. Mr. Sullivan, please, Dr. Chen interrupted. Ms. Williams needs to remain calm before her procedure. Danny looked down at Sarah, who was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Sarah, I need you to know that I never used Eleanor. I never manipulated her. I loved her like she was my real mother, and I thought she loved me like I was her real son. But you weren't, Sarah said quietly. Were you? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. No, Danny whispered. I wasn't. Sarah closed her eyes. I need you to leave. Sarah, please. I need to focus on surviving this surgery. And I can't do that while you're here. Danny felt his world collapsing around him. I'll be in the waiting room. No, Sarah said firmly. I don't want you here when I wake up. The words hit Danny like physical blows. You can't mean that. I don't know what I mean anymore. But I know I can't see you right now. David Blackwood was watching this exchange with something that might have been satisfaction. Mr. Sullivan, perhaps it's time to accept reality. The inheritance belongs to Eleanor's real family. And the people who care about you, they deserve better than a relationship built on lies. Danny looked around the room, at Sarah, who wouldn't meet his eyes, at Dr. Chun, who was clearly uncomfortable, at David Blackwood, who had just systematically destroyed everything Danny thought he knew about his life. If the money was never really mine, Danny said quietly, then I can't pay for Sarah's surgery. The surgery is already scheduled, David said. I'll cover the costs. Consider it a gesture of good faith. I don't want his money, Sarah said immediately. Then what do you want? Danny asked desperately. Sarah finally looked at him, her eyes full of tears and something that looked like goodbye. I want Eleanor to still be alive so I can ask her what she really meant. I want the last 2 weeks to never have happened. I want to go back to when we were just Danny and Sarah, struggling to pay rent but happy. We can still be that. No, Sarah said sadly. We can't, because even if you give up every penny, we'll always know that you chose money over honesty. And I'll always wonder if the man I fell in love with was just another placeholder for someone else. Danny felt something break inside him that he didn't think would ever heal. I should go, he said. Yes, Sarah agreed. You should. As Danny walked toward the door, David called after him. Mr. Sullivan? Trevor will be in touch about transferring the assets back to their rightful owner. I suggest you cooperate fully. It will go easier for everyone. Danny paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. And if I don't, then we'll see you in court, along with everyone you care about. The threat was clear. Danny could fight this and drag Sarah, Marcus, and everyone else through a legal nightmare. Or he could walk away and let David claim what he said was rightfully his. Either way, Danny had lost everything that mattered. He walked out of the hospital into the San Francisco afternoon, past the security team Trevor had assigned to protect him, past the reporters who shouted questions he didn't answer. For the first time since Eleanor's death, Danny was completely alone. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk Danny, it's Marcus. Jade told me everything. About the investigation, about David Blackwood, about Trevor. Meet me at our old spot in Golden Gate Park. Come alone. Trust no one else, asterisk. Danny stared at the message, hope and despair warring in his chest. Marcus, his best friend, his brother, the one person who might still be on his side. Or the next person to betray him. As Danny walked toward the park, Eleanor's letter seemed to burn in his memory. See who stands by you not because of what you have, but because of who you are. The test was almost over. And Danny was beginning to understand that he might not like the results. Golden Gate Park felt like a graveyard at dusk. Danny sat on the bench where he and Marcus used to meet as teenagers when life got too complicated to handle. Back when their biggest problems were finding jobs and avoiding cops and figuring out where to sleep when the group homes kicked them out. Now Danny was possibly worth $500 million, and he'd never felt more homeless in his life. Marcus appeared through the gathering shadows, looking older than his 26 years. But he was alone, and when he sat down next to Danny, it felt like the first genuine moment Danny had experienced in weeks. Jesus, man, Marcus said quietly. What a fucking nightmare. So about David Blackwood, about Trevor? Jade told me everything before she disappeared. Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. I'm an idiot, Danny. I brought a spy into our lives. You didn't know. I should have known. The questions she asked, the way she pushed about Eleanor's money. I thought she was just nosy, maybe a little gold digging. I didn't think she was a professional. Danny studied his friend's face in the dim light. Are you here to tell me you're done with me too? Are you crazy? Marcus turned to face him fully. Dude, we've been brothers since we were 18. You think some inheritance drama is going to change that? For the first time in days, Danny felt like he could breathe. Everyone else doesn't know you like I do. Sarah's scared and hurt, and I get that. But she'll come around when she has time to think. The rest of these people, they're vultures, man. They always were. Danny wanted to believe that, but the weight of everything that had happened felt crushing. Marcus, what if David Blackwood is right? What if Eleanor really did have dementia? What if she left me the money because she was confused and thought I was someone else? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Do you remember Eleanor's birthday last year? Of course. She made that cake, the chocolate one with the terrible frosting that tasted like sugar and love. And she kept talking about how proud she was of you, how you'd become the man she always knew you could be. Yeah, Danny, she wasn't confused that day. She was sharp as a knife. She told me stories about you as a kid, remembered every conversation you'd ever had. That woman's mind was clear as crystal, at least when it came to you. But the medical records David showed me could be bullshit, could be fabricated, could be real but not tell the whole story. Marcus leaned forward. Danny, I was there for Eleanor's final months. I helped you take care of her. You think I wouldn't have noticed if she was losing her mind? Danny felt a flicker of hope, but it was immediately crushed by the weight of everything else. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. David's going to fight this in court, and he has evidence and money and lawyers. He'll drag everyone I care about through depositions and investigations. So we fight back. With what? He has Trevor feeding him information about everything I've done since I found out about the inheritance. He orchestrated the media exposure to make me look like I was hiding money. He can afford the best lawyers in the country. You can afford them too. Not if the inheritance gets frozen during litigation. And even if I win. Danny's voice broke. Sarah doesn't want to see me. She thinks I chose money over honesty. She thinks our entire relationship was based on lies. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Is she wrong? The question hit Danny like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean, you did lie to her. For 2 weeks. You watched her stress about medical bills while you were sitting on enough money to solve every problem in her life. I was trying to protect. I know what you were trying to do. And I get it. But Danny, from her perspective, her boyfriend kept a massive secret while she was literally dying. That's not something you just get over. Danny buried his face in his hands. So what do? I don't know, man. I wish I did. They sat in silence as darkness fell around them. Danny's phone buzzed constantly, reporters, lawyers, people he'd never heard of claiming connections to Eleanor. He ignored them all. There's something else, Marcus said finally. Something Jade told me before she left. What? David Blackwood. He's not just Eleanor's son. He's dying. Danny looked up sharply. What? Terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe less. That's why he's pushing so hard for this inheritance challenge. It's not about the money, he's already rich. It's about dying knowing his mother loved him. The revelation hit Danny like a tsunami. He's dying. And according to Jade, Eleanor's money was supposed to help him get experimental treatment. Treatment that might give him more time. Danny felt sick. So I'm not just fighting for money. I'm fighting a dying man for his last chance at life. That's how he'll play it in court, yeah. And if I give up the inheritance, you lose everything. The money, any chance of paying for Sarah's treatment, any ability to help the people you care about. But if I fight, you're the healthy young man trying to steal money from a dying cancer patient. Danny laughed bitterly. Eleanor really set up the perfect test, didn't she? No matter what I choose, I lose something crucial. Maybe that was the point. What do you mean? Marcus was staring out at the park, his expression thoughtful. Eleanor was smart, right? Smarter than any of us gave her credit for. What if she knew about David? What if she knew he was dying? That's impossible. David said she didn't remember him. David said a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. Marcus turned to look at Danny. What if Eleanor left you the money knowing David would challenge it? What if she wanted to see what you'd do when faced with an impossible choice? Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. You think this is still part of her test? I think Eleanor Blackwood was playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. Danny's phone rang. Harrison, his lawyer. Mr. Sullivan, I have some urgent news. David Blackwood's legal team has filed for an emergency injunction. They're requesting that all inheritance funds be frozen immediately pending the outcome of their challenge. What does that mean? It means you can't access any of the money until this is resolved. And Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Williams' surgery is tomorrow morning. If the funds are frozen, Danny's blood turned to ice. I can't pay for it. I'm afraid not. Not unless you can raise $65,000 by tomorrow. Danny hung up and stared at his phone. He had maybe $3,000 in his personal checking account. Marcus probably had less. Sarah's surgery, Danny said numbly. It's tomorrow, and I can't pay for it. What about David? He said he'd cover it. Blood money. And Sarah already said she wouldn't take his money. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Danny, I've got about 800 in savings. It's 65,000 for the procedure. Then we need to find another way. Danny almost laughed. Like what? Rob a bank? Like ask for help? From who? Everyone thinks I'm either a millionaire or a con artist. No one's going to loan money to either of those things. Danny's phone buzzed with another call. This time it was Sarah's sister, Monica. Danny, thank God you answered. Sarah's asking for you. I thought she didn't want to see me. She changed her mind. You need to get to the hospital. Now. 20 minutes later, Danny was back in Sarah's room. She looked smaller than before, connected to more monitors, her face pale with exhaustion and fear. Danny, she said when she saw him. Sit down. Please. He sat, afraid to touch her, afraid to speak. Monica told me about the money being frozen, Sarah said. About the legal challenge. Sarah, I'm going to find a way. Stop. Her voice was firm but not unkind. Danny, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. He nodded. I've been thinking about everything that's happened. About Eleanor, about the money, about us. And I realized something. What? I don't care if Eleanor was confused. I don't care if she thought you were someone else. The woman I knew, the woman who sat with me during my panic attacks and taught me how to make her terrible cookies, that woman loved you. Really, genuinely loved you. Danny felt tears burning his eyes. Sarah. And the man she loved. The man who visited her every week for 5 years, who fixed her car and brought her groceries and held her hand when she was dying. That man deserves everything she wanted to give him. But David Blackwood can go to hell. Sarah's eyes flashed with more fire than Danny had seen in days. I don't care if he's dying. I don't care if he's Eleanor's biological son. Eleanor made her choice about who she wanted to be her family. Danny stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying fight for it. Fight for the money, fight for Eleanor's wishes, fight for us. Sarah, the legal battle could take years. It could destroy everyone around me. Then we'll deal with it. Together. But your surgery will happen. Dr. Chin says I can wait a few more days if necessary. We'll figure out the money. How? Sarah smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. GoFundMe. Despite everything, Danny laughed. A crowdfunding campaign for a millionaire's girlfriend's heart surgery. That's not going to go well. Then we'll get a loan. Or find a charity program. Or I'll work out a payment plan that takes the rest of my life to pay off. Sarah reached for his hand. Danny, the point is we'll figure it out. Because that's what people do when they love each other. What about the lies? What about me not telling you about the inheritance? Sarah was quiet for a moment. I'm still hurt about that. And we're going to have to work through it. But I understand why you did it. And more importantly, I understand that the man who made that choice, he was trying to protect something he loved. Danny squeezed her hand, feeling like maybe, just maybe, they might survive this. There's one more thing, Sarah said. About David Blackwood. What about him? Monica did some research while I was thinking. David Blackwood isn't just dying of cancer. He's also been convicted of financial fraud in 3 different countries. His fortune is mostly stolen money, and he's been hiding from international authorities. Danny stared at her. What? He's not a legitimate businessman. He's a con artist who's been running long-term inheritance scams for decades. Eleanor's money isn't going to save his life. It's going to help him disappear before the authorities catch up with him. The room seemed to spin around Danny. How do you know this? Because Monica's friend works for Interpol. And when Monica described David Blackwood, her friend recognized the description. Danny felt like laughing and crying at the same time. So Eleanor's test, it really was about seeing who would stay real. And who would reveal themselves as predators. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. * emergency meeting. 1 hour. Come alone, *. Danny showed the message to Sarah, who read it and shook her head. Don't go, she said. Whatever Trevor wants, it's not good for you. I have to. I need to know what David's planning next. Then don't go alone. Take Marcus. The text says come alone. The text is from a man who's been lying to you for weeks. Sarah's grip on his hand tightened. Danny, promise me you won't go alone. Danny looked at the woman he loved, lying in a hospital bed, facing surgery she couldn't afford, asking him to be careful with his life. I promise. But even as he said the words, Danny knew he was about to break another promise to Sarah. Because Trevor had something Danny needed, information about David's real plans. And Danny was willing to risk everything to get it. The test was almost over. But the final questions were going to be the hardest ones yet. Danny told Marcus he was going home. He told Sarah he was going to rest. He told himself he was being smart and strategic. All lies. Trevor had chosen the meeting location carefully. A private dining room at the St. Regis Hotel, neutral territory that felt both public and completely isolated. When Danny arrived, Trevor was already there, along with two other men in expensive suits who screamed lawyers from across the room. Mr. Sullivan, Trevor stood as Danny entered. Thank you for coming. I know this situation has become complicated. That's one word for it. Danny remained standing, every instinct telling him to leave. What do you want, Trevor? To offer you a way out. A clean exit that protects everyone you care about. One of the lawyers, a silver-haired man with predatory eyes, slid a folder across the table. Mr. Sullivan, I'm James Patterson, representing David Blackwood's interests. What we're proposing is simple. Voluntary relinquishment of the inheritance in exchange for certain guarantees. Danny opened the folder despite himself. The documents were thick, complex, full of legal language that made his head spin. But the numbers jumped out at him. $2 million. A lump sum payment to him in exchange for walking away from the $450 million inheritance. $2 million, Danny said flatly. Plus coverage of Ms. Williams' medical expenses, Trevor added smoothly. Full treatment, best doctors, no expense spared. Also, legal protection for you and your friends from any future claims or investigations. And all I have to do is admit that Eleanor was mentally incompetent and I manipulated her. You don't have to admit anything, Patterson said. You simply have to agree that the inheritance rightfully belongs to her biological son. Danny stared at the papers. $2 million was more money than he'd ever dreamed of having. It would solve Sarah's medical problems, set them up for life, let them disappear from this nightmare. What's the catch? Trevor and Patterson exchanged a look. No catch. David simply wants to honor his mother's memory and ensure her assets are used properly. His mother who didn't recognize him? His mother who spent 50 years looking for him and then chose to leave her money to someone else. His mother who was suffering from progressive dementia, Patterson said firmly. The medical evidence is quite clear. Danny thought about Sarah lying in that hospital bed, about the surgery she needed, about the life they could have together if he just signed these papers and walked away. I need to ask you something, Danny said. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course. Is David Blackwood really dying? Trevor's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Mr. Sullivan, I'm not sure how that's relevant. It's relevant because if he's dying, then this is about a son trying to connect with his mother's memory before he dies. But if he's not, Danny let the implication hang in the air. Mr. Blackwood is indeed facing serious health challenges, Patterson said carefully. That's not what I asked. The room went silent. Danny could feel the tension ratcheting up, the careful facade beginning to crack. Mr. Sullivan, Trevor said slowly, I think you're misunderstanding the situation here. Am I? Because I'm starting to think David Blackwood isn't dying at all. I'm starting to think he's exactly what Sarah's friend at Interpol says he is. A con artist who specializes in inheritance fraud. Patterson's face went rigid. Mr. Sullivan, I'd be very careful about making accusations. Or what? You'll sue me? With what standing? If David's a fraud, then you're part of a criminal conspiracy. Trevor stood up abruptly. I think this meeting is over. Sit down, Trevor. Danny's voice carried an authority he'd never heard from himself before. We're not done. Actually, we are. Trevor moved toward the door, but Danny blocked his path. Eleanor never had dementia, did she? Trevor's professional mask slipped completely. Mr. Sullivan, you're in over your head. Walk away. Take the money. Protect the people you love. By betraying the woman who saved my life? By being realistic about power and money and the kind of people who have both. Danny felt something crystallize inside him, a clarity he'd been missing for weeks. You're threatening me. I'm advising you. No, you're threatening me. And through me, you're threatening Sarah and Marcus and anyone else I care about. Danny stepped closer to Trevor. How long have you been working for David? Mr. Sullivan. How long? Trevor sighed. 3 years. Since he found Eleanor. And your job was what? Monitor her finances? Make sure she didn't give her money away. My job was to protect a vulnerable elderly woman from fortune hunters and con artists. Like me? Like anyone who might take advantage of her condition. Danny laughed bitterly. Her condition? You keep coming back to that. What condition, Trevor? What exactly was wrong with Eleanor's mind? Patterson cleared his throat. Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Blackwood's medical records clearly show. Fabricated records, Danny interrupted. Records that were created after her death to support a legal challenge. The silence that followed was deafening. You can't prove that, Trevor said quietly. Can I? Because I think if someone looked closely at those medical records, they'd find they were backdated. I think they'd find that the doctors supposedly treating Eleanor for dementia never actually saw her. Patterson was packing up his briefcase. Mr. Sullivan, this conversation is over. No, it's not. Danny's voice was steel now. Because I want to know what the real plan is. David challenges the will. You provide fabricated evidence of Eleanor's incompetence. And then what? He gets the inheritance and disappears. Mr. Sullivan, Trevor said, and for the first time, Danny heard something like genuine concern in his voice. You don't understand who you're dealing with. David Blackwood has resources, connections, the ability to make problems disappear. If you fight this, he'll hurt the people I love. He'll do whatever is necessary to protect his interests. Danny felt the weight of the impossible choice settle on his shoulders. Sign the papers, take the money, save Sarah, and let David steal Eleanor's fortune. Or fight, and risk everything and everyone he cared about. What if I told you I don't care about the money? Trevor frowned. What? What if I told you that I'd give up every penny of the inheritance, but I won't let you destroy Eleanor's reputation? I won't let you claim she was incompetent when she was the sharpest woman I've ever known. Mr. Sullivan, that's not how this works. It's exactly how this works. Danny pulled out his phone. Because while you've been playing games and making threats, I've been doing some research of my own. Danny showed them the screen. It was a recording app, and it had been running for the entire conversation. Everything you just said about fabricated medical records, about David having resources to make problems disappear, about threatening people I love, it's all recorded. Patterson went pale. You can't. I can. And I will. Unless David Blackwood withdraws his legal challenge and disappears back to whatever hole he crawled out of. Trevor was staring at Danny like he'd never seen him before. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm calling your bluff. Danny stood and walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Trevor? You're fired. Send me a bill for your services. I'll pay it out of the $2 million David was offering me. As Danny reached for the door handle, Trevor's voice stopped him. Danny, please. You don't understand. David isn't just a con artist. He's dangerous. People who cross him, they disappear. Danny turned around slowly. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who thought he was just managing money and realized too late he was part of something much worse. For the first time since this conversation began, Danny saw genuine fear in Trevor's eyes. How worse? David Blackwood has killed people, Danny. For money, for revenge, for the simple reason that they got in his way. The authorities in 3 countries want him for more than just financial fraud. Danny felt ice water in his veins. And you've been working for him. I didn't know. Not at first. By the time I figured out what he really was. Trevor's voice broke. Danny, I have a family. A wife, 2 kids. He has photos of them. The room seemed to tilt around Danny. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even about Eleanor's legacy. It was about survival. What does he want? The inheritance. All of it. And for you to disappear quietly. And if I don't? Trevor's answer was barely a whisper. Then he'll start with the people you love. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk beautiful girlfriend. Shame if something happened to her during surgery. Heart procedures can be so unpredictable. Asterisk. Attached was a photo of Sarah in her hospital bed, taken from inside her room. Danny's hands shook as he showed the message to Trevor. He's already there. Danny, please. Just take the deal. Walk away. Live your life. Danny stared at the photo of Sarah, vulnerable and trusting, believing Danny would protect her. Then he thought about Eleanor, who had given him everything and asked only that he be strong enough to handle the responsibility. No. Danny. No. Danny's voice was stronger now. I won't be intimidated. I won't let him hurt Sarah. And I won't let him steal what Eleanor wanted me to have. Then you're signing all of your death warrants. Danny pocketed his phone and looked Trevor in the eye. Maybe. But at least I'll die as the man Eleanor raised me to be. He walked out of the hotel room, leaving Trevor and Patterson staring after him. In the elevator, Danny called Marcus. Marcus, I need you to get to the hospital. Now. Sarah's in danger. What kind of danger? The kind that kills people. Danny, what the hell? I'll explain when I get there. Just don't let anyone near Sarah who isn't medical staff. And Marcus? Yeah. Call the police. Tell them there's been a credible threat against a patient at UCSF. Danny hung up and called Harrison. Mr. Harrison? It's Danny. I need you to file a formal complaint with the police about threats made against me and my girlfriend. I'm sending you a recording. Mr. Sullivan, what's happening? Eleanor's test is almost over. And I think I finally understand what she was really trying to teach me. Which is? Danny watched the city lights blur past as his taxi raced toward the hospital. That sometimes the only way to prove you're worthy of love is to risk everything to protect it. Eleanor had given him an impossible choice. His safety or her legacy, his life or her love. But Danny was finally beginning to understand that it wasn't impossible at all. It was the easiest choice in the world. Danny burst through the hospital doors like a man possessed. The security guard at the front desk tried to stop him, but Danny was already running toward the elevators, Marcus's voice echoing from his phone. Danny, where are you? The police are here, but they said they can't do anything without more evidence. And there's something else. What? Sarah's not in her room. Danny's blood turned to ice. What do you mean she's not in her room? I mean her bed is empty, her floor is disconnected, and the nurses are acting like they don't know where she went. Danny slammed the elevator button repeatedly, as if that would make it arrive faster. Marcus, find her. Now. I'm trying, but... The line went dead. Danny took the stairs 3 at a time, his mind racing. David had Sarah. Somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten her out of a secured hospital room without anyone noticing. The man wasn't just a con artist, he was a professional. Danny reached Sarah's floor and immediately saw the chaos. Nurses were clustered around the desk, talking in urgent whispers. Police officers were taking statements. And Marcus was arguing with a doctor Danny didn't recognize. Marcus! Danny, thank God. They're saying Sarah checked herself out, but that's impossible. She's scheduled for surgery in 12 hours. The doctor, a thin man with nervous eyes, stepped forward. Mr. Sullivan? I'm Dr. Hayes. Ms. Williams signed herself out against medical advice approximately an hour ago. That's a lie. Sir, I have her signature right here. Danny grabbed the clipboard and stared at the signature. It looked like Sarah's handwriting, but something was off. The pressure was wrong, the spacing slightly different. This is forged. Sir, I watched her sign it myself. Danny studied Dr. Hayes's face. The way his eyes darted away, the slight tremor in his hands. How much did he pay you? I don't know what you're talking about. David Blackwood. How much did he pay you to help him kidnap my girlfriend? Dr. Hayes went pale. Sir, you're making very serious accusations. And you're making very serious mistakes. Danny pulled out his phone and showed the recording app. I've been recording everything since I left the hotel, including this conversation where you're lying about Sarah checking herself out. One of the police officers, a black woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, stepped forward. Mr. Sullivan? I'm Detective Williams. We need to talk. They found a quiet consultation room where Detective Williams listened to Danny's recording of the meeting with Trevor and Patterson. Her expression grew grimmer with each revelation. This is a lot to process, she said when it was over. You're telling me that David Blackwood is running an international inheritance scam, that he's threatened you and your girlfriend, and that he may have kidnapped her from this hospital. Yes. And the doctors are claiming she checked herself out voluntarily? With a forged signature. Detective Williams was quiet for a moment. Mr. Sullivan, I ran David Blackwood through our system after your friend called. You're right about one thing. He's wanted by Interpol for financial crimes in multiple countries. So you'll arrest him? If I can find him. The address he gave the lawyers doesn't exist. The phone numbers are disconnected. David Blackwood has vanished. Danny felt the walls closing in. Then how do we find Sarah? We trace his money, his connections, his resources. Detective Williams leaned forward. But I need you to understand something. If this man is as dangerous as you say, if he's willing to kidnap someone from a hospital, then he's desperate. And desperate criminals make unpredictable choices. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number. Asterisk Pier 33. 1 hour. Come alone or she dies. Asterisk. Danny showed the message to Detective Williams, who immediately started making calls. We'll set up surveillance around the pier, she said. Undercover officers, backup teams. No. Danny stood up. He said, come alone. Mr. Sullivan, that's exactly what he wants. He gets you isolated, eliminates the witness to his crimes. He also has Sarah. If I don't show up, or if he sees police, he'll kill her. And if you do show up, he'll kill you both. Danny stared out the window at the San Francisco skyline, thinking about Eleanor, about the woman who had saved his life and asked only that he be worthy of her love. Maybe, Danny said quietly, but at least I'll die trying to save her. Detective Williams grabbed his arm. Mr. Sullivan, don't be stupid. We can. You can what? Find David Blackwood, who's managed to stay ahead of international law enforcement for years. Trace a man who doesn't exist on paper. Danny pulled away. Sarah doesn't have time for proper police procedure. Then what do you suggest? Danny's phone rang. Harrison, his lawyer. Mr. Sullivan, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Kind of in the middle of something, Harrison. This is important. I've been going through Eleanor's papers, the ones she left sealed until after her death, and I found something. Something that changes everything. Danny felt a chill. What kind of something? A letter. Written the day before she died. It's, Mr. Sullivan, I think you need to hear this. I don't have time. Eleanor knew about David Blackwood. She knew everything. The world stopped spinning. What do you mean she knew everything? She hired private investigators years ago. She found David, learned about his criminal activities, his multiple identities, his victims. Mr. Sullivan, Eleanor didn't leave you the inheritance despite not knowing about her son. She left it to you because she knew exactly who her son had become. Danny sank into a chair. Read me the letter. Harrison's voice was shaky as he read. My dearest Danny, asterisk if Harrison is reading this to you, then David has made his move. I pray you're safe, and I pray you'll forgive an old woman for putting you through this ordeal. Asterisk. Asterisk I found my son 3 years ago. It was everything I'd dreamed of and everything I'd feared. David Blackwood. The name he chose when he decided his birth name wasn't good enough. Is not the child I gave away. He's become something monstrous, something that preys on lonely people like I once was. Asterisk. Asterisk he killed his adoptive parents for their money when he was 22. He's destroyed dozens of lives across 3 continents. And when he found me, he didn't come as a son seeking reconciliation. He came as a predator who saw an opportunity. Asterisk. Asterisk, I let him think I was a confused old woman with dementia. I let him believe his con was working. But every conversation was recorded. Every visit was witnessed. Every crime he confessed to thinking I wouldn't remember was documented. Asterisk. Asterisk, the inheritance was never about the money, Danny. It was about giving you the resources to stop him. The real inheritance, the one that matters, is the evidence I've been gathering for 3 years. Bank records, recorded confessions, photographs, witness statements. Everything needed to put David Blackwood away forever. Asterisk. Asterisk Trevor Walsh was supposed to be helping David, but I turned him months ago. He's been working for me, documenting everything, building the case. When David makes his final move, and he will because greed always overreaches, you'll have everything you need to destroy him. Asterisk. Asterisk check the safety deposit box at First National Bank. The key is taped under my jewelry box. Box number 1247. Take everything to the FBI. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. But I needed David to believe his plan was working. I needed him to get comfortable, to make mistakes, to reveal the full scope of his operation. Asterisk. Asterisk, you asked me once why I chose you out of all the foster children I could have helped. I told you it was because you had a good heart. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Asterisk. I chose you because you're my grandson, Danny. Asterisk, your father was David's younger brother, given up for adoption separately. He died when you were 8. I've been watching over you ever since, waiting for the right moment to bring you home. Asterisk. Asterisk, David doesn't know about you. He doesn't know he has a nephew, doesn't know that Eleanor Blackwood's real heir is already in her life. I've kept that secret for 12 years, waiting for you to become the man who could stop him. Asterisk. Asterisk, the inheritance is yours by right of blood, but more importantly, it's yours by right of character. You are everything David could have been if he'd chosen love over greed. Asterisk. Asterisk, stop him, Danny. For all the people he's hurt, for all the people he'll hurt if he's not stopped. You have the tools. You have the resources. Most importantly, you have the heart. Asterisk. Asterisk, I love you, my grandson. I always have. Asterisk. Eleanor. The phone slipped from Danny's hands. Detective Williams was staring at him with wide eyes. Mr. Sullivan? Are you all right? Danny looked up at her, his mind reeling. I'm Eleanor's grandson. David Blackwood is my uncle. What? And Trevor? Trevor's been working for Eleanor all along. Danny's phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. Asterisk Danny, if you're reading Eleanor's letter, then you know the truth. I have Sarah. She's safe. David thinks he's meeting you at Pier 33, but it's a trap. FBI is already in position. All you have to do is show up. Asterisk. Danny stared at the message, understanding flooding through him like a warm wave. Eleanor played everyone, he said wonderingly. David thought he was conning her, but she was building a case against him. I thought I was being tested, but I was being prepared. Trevor thought he was betraying me, but he was protecting me. Detective Williams was making rapid phone calls, coordinating with federal agents who were apparently already involved in the case. Mr. Sullivan, she said when she hung up. The FBI has been building a case against David Blackwood for 2 years. Your grandmother's evidence is the final piece they needed. And Sarah is safe with Agent Trevor Walsh. Yes, he's FBI, in a secure location. Danny felt like laughing and crying at the same time. So when I go to Pier 33, you'll be walking into a federal sting operation designed to finally take down one of the most wanted men in the world. An hour later, Danny stood at Pier 33, wearing a wire and surrounded by invisible federal agents. David Blackwood emerged from the shadows looking exactly like what he was, a predator who'd finally been cornered. Hello, nephew, David said with a cold smile. Surprised to see me? Not really, Danny replied. I've been expecting you my whole life. David's confidence faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means Eleanor told me everything. About you, about what you've done, about what you really are. Eleanor was a confused old woman. Eleanor was the smartest person I've ever known. And she spent 3 years setting you up. David laughed, but there was desperation in it now. You think you're clever? You think you've won something? I have your girlfriend. No, you don't. Danny smiled. You have nothing. No hostage, no leverage, no escape plan. Just a lifetime of victims finally getting justice. David's hand moved toward his jacket, but federal agents were already surrounding him, weapons drawn. David Blackwood, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, murder, and about 30 other charges across 6 countries. As they cuffed David and led him away, he screamed at Danny. You think you deserve her money? You're nothing. A street kid who got lucky. You're right, Danny called back. I am a street kid who got lucky. Lucky enough to be loved by Eleanor Blackwood. Lucky enough to be chosen by someone who saw the best in people instead of the worst. She only loved you because she thought you were me. Danny smiled sadly. No, Uncle David. She only tolerated you because she hoped you might become me. As the police cars drove away, Danny felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Sarah, looking tired but alive and beautiful. So, she said with a shaky smile, Eleanor was your grandmother. Apparently. And you're actually worth $450 million. Apparently. And your uncle is an international criminal who just tried to kill us both. That too. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Danny. Yeah. Next time you inherit a fortune, maybe just tell me right away? Danny laughed, pulling her into his arms. Deal. But Sarah? What? I love you. Not because I have money, not because Eleanor wanted me to have money, but because you're you. And you love me even when I'm an idiot who keeps life-changing secrets. Yeah, well, Sarah said, standing on her toes to kiss him. Someone's got to. As they walked away from the pier, Danny's phone buzzed with one final message. This one was from Harrison. Asterisk, the FBI raid recovered evidence of 17 murders, 43 fraud cases, and over 200 million in stolen assets across multiple countries. David Blackwood will never see freedom again. Eleanor's final case is closed, asterisk. Danny looked up at the San Francisco sky and whispered, Thank you, Grandma. Eleanor's test was finally over. And for the first time in his life, Danny Sullivan knew exactly who he was and where he belonged. He was Eleanor Blackwood's grandson, Sarah Williams' boyfriend, Marcus Thompson's best friend, an heir to a fortune built not on money, but on love, courage, and the unshakable belief that some things are worth fighting for. The inheritance had never been about the money at all. It had been about becoming the kind of person who deserved it. 6 months later, Danny sat in Harrison's law office, but everything was different now. The same mahogany desk, the same leather chairs, but Danny was no longer the confused, overwhelmed young man who'd walked in here believing he'd inherited a few $1,000s and some personal effects. The Eleanor Blackwood Foundation is officially operational, Harrison reported, sliding a folder across the desk. Initial funding of $50 million, with plans to expand as you see fit. Danny opened the folder, scanning the documents that would change hundreds of lives. Foster care advocacy, college scholarships for aged-out kids, and medical assistance for families in crisis. Just as you specified, the first recipients will be announced next week. Danny smiled, thinking about the kids who would get the chances he'd never had, the families who wouldn't have to choose between love and financial survival. Eleanor would be proud. I think she already knew you'd do this. The foundation paperwork was in her sealed files, Danny. She'd already started the legal framework, just waiting for you to make it real. Of course she had. Even from beyond the grave, Eleanor was still teaching him, still showing him how to transform pain into purpose. Danny's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Asterisk surgery went perfectly. Dr. Chin says I'm cleared for normal activities. Celebration dinner tonight. Asterisk. Danny's smile widened. Sarah's second surgery, a minor follow-up procedure, had been performed by the best cardiac team in the country, paid for without the crushing debt that would have destroyed their future. She was healthy, strong, and completely free of the heart condition that had nearly killed her. More importantly, they were stronger too. The months following David's arrest had been challenging. Rebuilding trust, learning to communicate without secrets, figuring out how to love each other in their new reality. But they'd done the work together and come out better on the other side. Asterisk absolutely. Marcus is cooking. Fair warning, it might be terrible, asterisk. As long as it's not ramen, I'm happy. Danny pocketed his phone and looked at Harrison. Any word on the other cases? David's testimony led to the arrests of 17 co-conspirators across 6 countries. The FBI estimates you helped them recover over $400 million in stolen assets that can now be returned to victims' families. Danny nodded. That money wouldn't bring back the people David had killed, wouldn't undo the lives he'd destroyed, but it would help the survivors rebuild. That mattered. And Trevor? Agent Walsh received a commendation for his undercover work. Apparently, he'd been working the David Blackwood case for 3 years, and Eleanor's cooperation was instrumental in finally building an airtight case. Danny still marveled at Eleanor's long game. She'd played chess while everyone else was playing checkers, orchestrating a complex operation that brought down a killer while simultaneously testing her grandson's character. The woman had been remarkable. There's one more thing, Harrison said, his tone shifting to something more personal. I received a call from Mrs. Chin yesterday. Your elderly neighbor, Eleanor's friend? Is she okay? She's fine. But she wanted you to know that Eleanor left something else for you. Something she asked Mrs. Chin to hold until you were ready. Harrison handed Danny a small wrapped package. Inside was Eleanor's jewelry box, the wooden one with the slightly crooked lid that had sat on her dresser for as long as Danny could remember. Taped to the bottom, just as Eleanor's letter had indicated, was the key to the safety deposit box. But there was something else, a small folded note in Eleanor's handwriting. Asterisk Danny. This box belonged to my mother, and her mother before her. It's not worth much money, but it holds something more valuable. The love of women who survived impossible circumstances to build better lives for their children. You are the continuation of that legacy. Fill it with love and pass it on. Grandma Eleanor asterisk. Danny opened the jewelry box carefully. Inside, nestled among Eleanor's modest collection of earrings and brooches, was a small black velvet box he'd never seen before. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a simple diamond ring. Not huge, not flashy, but absolutely perfect. Exactly what Sarah would want. A note was tucked beneath the ring. Asterisk 4 when you're ready to make it official. She's perfect for you, Danny. Don't wait too long. Life is shorter than we think. Love, Eleanor asterisk. Danny laughed, tears streaming down his face. Even in death, Eleanor was still taking care of him, still making sure he had everything he needed. Mr. Harrison? Yes. I need to go. I have a very important question to ask someone. 2 hours later, Danny stood in the kitchen of his new apartment. Not a penthouse, not a mansion, but a comfortable 2-bedroom place in the same Oakland neighborhood where he'd grown up. Sarah was stirring something that smelled amazing while Marcus regaled them with stories from his new job at the community college where Danny had endowed an automotive repair program. And then the engine literally fell out of the car, Marcus was saying, gesturing wildly with a wooden spoon. Just dropped right onto the floor like it gave up on life. That's not how engines work, Sarah laughed. Tell that to the engine. Danny watched them, his family, his real family, the people who'd stood by him through the chaos and stayed real when everything else fell apart. Marcus, who'd never once asked for money or special treatment, who'd simply been happy that his best friend was happy. Sarah, who'd chosen to love him despite the lies, despite the danger, despite everything. Sarah, Danny said quietly. She turned, still smiling from Marcus's story, and the expression on Danny's face made her go still. Danny, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. For the first time in my life, everything is exactly right. Danny dropped to one knee, pulling out Eleanor's ring. Sarah Williams, you've seen me at my worst and somehow decided I was worth keeping. You've forgiven my mistakes, stood by me through impossible circumstances, and made me want to be the man Eleanor always believed I could be. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of your love? Yes, Sarah whispered. Yes, yes, of course yes. As Danny slipped the ring onto her finger, Marcus hooped and accidentally flung tomato sauce across the kitchen wall. They all burst into laughter, and Danny felt something settle in his chest, a peace he'd never known before. Later that evening, as they sat on their small balcony watching the Oakland skyline, Sarah curled against Danny's side with her new ring catching the streetlight. Do you think Eleanor knew? Sarah asked. About us, about how this would all turn out? Danny thought about the woman who'd orchestrated an international criminal investigation while simultaneously testing her grandson's character, who'd kept an engagement ring in her jewelry box for a relationship that was still developing when she died. Yeah, he said. I think she knew everything. Even that Marcus would burn dinner? Especially that Marcus would burn dinner. Sarah laughed, the sound mixing with the distant hum of the city Eleanor had called home for 50 years. The city where she'd worked as a nurse, saved lives, lost her son, found her grandson, and built a legacy that would outlive them all. Danny, what are you going to do with the rest of the money? The foundation is amazing, but there's still so much left. Danny was quiet for a moment, thinking about the conversations he'd been having with financial advisors, with lawyers, with other philanthropists who'd reached out after the story broke. I want to build something, he said finally. A network of support for kids who age out of foster care. Not just money, mentorship, job training, emotional support, family connections. Everything I wish I'd had before Eleanor found me. That sounds perfect. And I want to travel. See the places Eleanor never got to visit. Maybe take a certain beautiful nurse with me, if she's interested. This nurse might be persuaded. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their neighborhood settle into evening rhythms. Kids playing in the street, families finishing dinner, the ordinary magic of people building lives together. Danny's phone buzzed with an email from Harrison. Asterisk Danny. Thought you'd want to see this. The first Eleanor Blackwood Foundation scholarship recipient was announced today. Attached is her thank you letter. Asterisk. Danny opened the attachment and read. Dear Mr. Sullivan and the Eleanor Blackwood Foundation. Asterisk, my name is Maria Santos, and I'm 18 years old. I aged out of foster care last month, and I thought my dream of becoming a nurse was over because I couldn't afford college. Asterisk. Asterisk, your scholarship doesn't just pay for my education. It tells me that someone believes in kids like me. Someone thinks we're worth investing in. Someone sees our potential instead of just our problems. Asterisk. Asterisk, I don't know who Eleanor Blackwood was, but I know she would be proud that her money is helping people like me build better lives. I promise to work hard, to help others the way you've helped me, and to pass on the love you've shown me. Asterisk. Thank you for seeing the person I can become. Maria. Danny showed the letter to Sarah, who read it with tears in her eyes. She would be proud, you know, Sarah said. Eleanor. She'd be so proud of who you've become. Danny looked out at the city lights, thinking about a lonely boy who'd been found by a woman brave enough to love him without conditions. About a test that had revealed not just who could be trusted, but who he really was underneath the fear and doubt. I hope so, he said. I hope she knows that I finally understand what she was trying to teach me. Which was, that real wealth isn't about money. It's about the people who choose to love you and the people you choose to love back. Everything else is just resources to protect and serve that love. Sarah squeezed his hand. I think she knew you'd figure it out. Eventually. Eventually is all any of us get. As the Oakland lights twinkled below them, Danny felt Eleanor's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. Her test was complete, her legacy secure, her love multiplied and shared with people who needed it most. The inheritance had changed everything and nothing. He was still Danny Sullivan, still a guy who could fix any engine and would always worry about being good enough for the people he loved. But now he was also Eleanor Blackwood's grandson, heir to a fortune built on love rather than greed, and guardian of a legacy that would outlive them all. The boy who'd had nothing had learned to appreciate everything. The man who'd been given everything had learned what truly mattered. And somewhere in the space between those truths, Danny had finally found home. What did this story teach you about the real meaning of wealth and the courage it takes to love without conditions? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.